falls it in your hand. Exit light into night. Grain of sand. Exit light into night. Take my hand. Off to never, never land. Yeah, yeah. Yo.
All right, good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? We're doing good, I assume. Yes, it is Larsen Live, January 18th. Sandman enters. We opened up, of course, with Enter Sandman by Metallica. And it's all relevant because Neil Gaiman is a sex pest. The original title of the stream was going to be Sandman Enters You, but I thought that was a little on the nose. Anyway, we'll get to the celebrity and pop culture stuff later. Now we got some quote-unquote important news to go over, quote-unquote sirs. First off, yes, we're doing this at 10 a.m., not 12 p.m. I have a dentist appointment, and it coincides with the time that is typical for the stream. So sadly, I have to do it at an earlier time. We have a bit of a chat going on about Metallica and Megadeth. I totally missed the joke Pony Throat was making about Dave Mustaine not getting credited for this song and several other songs. Also, some discussion of drumming. But nonetheless, I hope we can have a good time, even though we are not doing things in the normal time. So, first of all, let's talk about the big news that's been going on. As we know, the United States Supreme Court has upheld a ban on TikTok. We are still debating whether or not TikTok will in fact be banned. I, of course, don't use TikTok because I'm not a teenage girl, but just kidding, of course. I know many adults use TikTok. My wife enjoys the occasional TikTok herself. But yeah, I never saw the appeal. I mean, I don't know. My wife, she's not doing like the, I guess, mainstream TikTok where cretins, kind of dance around and like, shimmy, shimmy, and all that stuff. She does better TikToks, like motorcycle talk and book talk. Anyway, yeah, I never saw the appeal, but whatever. So, in response to this ban, many American Zoomers and general stupid people have rushed en masse to another Chinese social media app, Xiaohongshu, in the hopes of, getting that sweet, sweet micro content that they crave so much from the TikToks. Yeah, bang up job. I gotta say, the government did not do well in this. Now, China does ban many, many of America's media apps like Facebook, Twitter, Wikipedia, things like that. So the banning of TikTok, I think, is just some petty, I can do it too sort of thing to stick it to China. And that's okay, I suppose. But then you literally encourage an exodus to a social media app literally called The Little Red Book. A social media app literally named after Mao Zedong's manifesto. Yeah, bang up job, guys. Okay, Thomas Boyce, referring to Neil Gaiman, says, I remember the Believe All Women post by him. Yes, Neil Gaiman is a creepy male feminist who, like many male feminists, ends up being a degenerate pervert. Dusankovich says, oh well. C-Punk Messiah says, Duolingo has had an uptick in people learning Mandarin. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Ponythroat says, I only know of Neil Gaiman due to that Terry Pratchett crossover in the Rob Liefeld villain Gaiman Wank, who spoke of waffling soliloquies trying to convince everybody he was as smart as he was. Dare I say Rob Liefeld actually made an insightful satire of something? The mind boggles. C-Punk Messiah says, I doubt a lot of TikTokers have the mental fortitude and patience to learn Chinese. Give me 1 second, please. I'm getting a text message. Okay, I'm back. Thomas Boyce says the overlap between male feminists and deranged sex pest is overwhelming. Oh yeah, we'll get to that later. But there have been some interesting cultural shifts going on to the American Zoomer exes towards Xiao Hong Su. Basically, many of these people are imbibing the communist propaganda, hook, line, and sinker. There are Zoomers literally denying the Tiananmen Square massacre. They're talking about how America finds homeless people. Curious, how does China treat homeless people? Spoilers, it's not very well. I mean, they literally just forcibly relocate homeless people to camps. You have Zoomers denying the Tiananmen Square massacre, the oppression of Tibetans and Xinjiang Muslims, and political repression, etc., etc. One Zoomer was like, I don't get why America's always talking about Tiananmen Square. What's this? Showing a picture of the 1985 Philadelphia move bombing. Which is wrong for several reasons. First of all, the National Museum of African American History, a United States government funded museum, literally has an exhibit on such a thing. Secondly, both of those situations were bad, but I think Tiananmen Square was just a little bit worse. Just in terms of numbers, if nothing else. You know, America's far from perfect, but I would like to point out that communist China is, in fact, not a nice place, despite what the Zoomers think. And the Zoomers are finding that out a little bit. Little Red Book explicitly bans all LGBTQ content, and the American Zoomers sure are super gay. So that's not going over well. Chinese social media people are also a bit surprised that in America you get 2 days off and you can work 8-hour days. China, of course, has the 996 system in which basically you got to work at least 9 hours a day, 6 days a week. So, yeah, I guess both sides are seeing that their governments are full of crap. Point says there's literally pictures of people run over with tanks if you search for a few minutes. Yes, I have seen the photos of Tiananmen Square protesters being mulched by tanks. C-Punk Messiah says it's essentially the phrase "thou dost protest too much." My wife says she does not watch TikTok. She does watch TikTok. She does not make them. Yeah, but even I noticed that you don't watch those like little dancy TikToks. You do like bike talk and book talk and F1 talk. Several sub talks, but not the main TikTok. Thomas Boyce says they call America racist, but wait until they find out how China treats blacks and Hispanics. I don't know how many Hispanics there are in China. Perhaps you meant Filipinos. Hi-yo. Just kidding, of course. But, yes, it is a very commonest thing to point out America's history of racism, which certainly does exist, but it's not like they're any better. I mean, you can look at I can go on social media and look up several videos of Chinese like mine overseers literally whipping Africans like the slavery days. Not to mention that there were several large-scale riots in the 1970s and 80s about Chinese university students fighting with African exchange students. Now, personally, I'm against the banning of TikTok. It's just it's a free speech thing. I mean, I don't like TikTok. I think it's really dumb, but it's a matter of free speech. Like, people should be allowed to watch whatever stupid horse shit they want. I've actually started thinking of. I've been toying with the idea that like a way you can fix America in other countries. Thank you, my love. She just made me some coffee. Is basically you can have a combination of generous, welfare states and safety nets and social media, but combine it with very intense social shaming to keep people from doing those things. Like, yes, you can have a generous welfare state, but I will also call you every single day to tell you what a worthless sack of shit you are until you get off welfare. I think it might work, but I digress. And anyway, the point is you could do something similar like that to TikTok and other mind-numbing social medias. Every 5 TikToks you watch, you should have a large, blinking, unskippable screen telling you that you're wasting your brain power. Go read a book, loser. Biff Slankovich says they should get rid of TT. I don't agree. I mean, I would, if I had kids, I would steer them away from the TikToks. But, I don't think you should ban it. I'm basically a free speech absolutist, and that any speech that is not explicitly threatening people, I think should be allowed. But you should also be allowed to steer your children away from this mind-numbing, prole slop. Narahari Kamath says all human societies have racism embedded. Yes, they sure do, despite what Erdogan in Turkey says. Yeah. Anyway, this might end up being like the stupidest American victory of all time if we like ruin Chinese social media with like stupid like LGBT content and like transsexual furries and like TikTok dancing. The Chinese government might ban it and show their people, an explicit repression. It might work. Okay, Ponythroat says TikTok is only being removed from the App Store. You can still install TikTok via APK file. Although I imagine that. Oh, what was that? I see. My wife says that you can't update it if it's not in the App Store. Well, I'm sure they'll finagle a way to do that. I'll be honest, I don't know what an APK file is. Ponythroat says, I imagine that a large portion of TikTok's audience is too tech illiterate to do such a thing. Okay, an APK, Android package, is a file format used to install and distribute apps on Android devices. I'm sure you could download updates based on just releasing new APK files every now and then. I'm not going to pretend like I know what the hell I'm talking about, but I feel like that could work. Anyway, not to be outdone by Chi-Com stupidity, America's going down the shitter too. The ongoing debate about living standards and H-1Bs and et cetera, continues to go on. The boomers are booming it up about this sort of thing. People like Christopher Rufo posted a link from Panda Express. The Panda Express near my house is offering $70K a year plus benefits for the assistant manager. You can work at Chipotle for a few years and work your way up to manager, making $100,000 a year. Not to be outdone, Rakesh Simha says, Uh, People in the Western world should be prepared to take a 30% income cut. He was actually quoting a New Zealand business owner, but he agrees. Their rationale is that the then income levels are not sustainable due to a variety of geopolitical and socioeconomic conditions. It's going to be hard to beat China. That's why Tesla has to cut jobs and salaries. You can't pay workers $80,000 a year when China pays its workers $6,000 per year. It makes them work 13-hour shifts with no overtime. Yeah, that's another thing. The Xiaohong Su people were shocked at that America has overtime pay. And bear in mind that America's leisure standards and working standards are a pitiful shadow of what they used to be. I know for a fact that a communist Chinese would be absolutely stunned at the material conditions of America in the 1950s and 60s. I know this because I've heard direct testimony saying that. But I digress. Rakesh Simha continues. America needs to accept the good old days are over. Adjust to have your new incomes. Okay? Delete your shopping apps. Cook at home. Eat meat only once a week. Get used to a lower standard of living. Yeah, that's a winning strategy. Tell the people your standard of living is going to be lower. Deal with it. Work like a slave or be replaced by one. How about no? How about go fuck yourself? How about we should do whatever we need, do whatever we have to do to return to those halcyon days of high standards of living? If the corporate CEO has to take a little bit of a profit cut, well then so be it. I remind you that in 1950, the average American CEO made 57 times what his worker makes. Now it's like 6,000 or something like that. Ponythrow clarifies that yes, it would have to manually update APK files, but you can still use TikTok. Thomas Boyce says, maybe banning TikTok will cut down on the amount of, trendy LGBTQ Zoomers. Perhaps. I have nothing against the gays. I mean, they can do as they please. But, I am a tomboy respecter, and I don't like seeing the quote-unquote tomboy genocide that's being induced by the TikToks. But yeah, just accept a lower standard of living. They say go work at Panda Express. They're also advocating dumpster diving. Well, you can retain like some minimum standard of living. You just go behind the grocery store and, look for day-old expired milk. Have you considered living under a bridge to save money, sir? Go work fast food and dumpster dive. I'm curious as to where this discourse is going to end. Well, what, you don't want to have a... What, are you too good to, suck cock under the Brooklyn Bridge for money? Yeah, this is why India's going to outcompete you, you stupid, entitled American pig dog. Me. C-Punk Messiah asked tomboy genocide. It's a somewhat tongue-in-cheek conspiracy theory that, somewhat moody, tomboyish girls are being brainwashed into cutting off their bosoms and becoming trans men. I was saying it's somewhat tongue-in-cheek. I don't actually think that's something that's happening. But, some food for thought. Ponythroat says, people who make luxury products asking people to have less disposable income are low-key getarded. Yes, they sure are. But yes, I guarantee you this discourse will end with, the, trad right-wing conservatives advocating people, give fellatio under the Brooklyn Bridge for pennies. And that way you can, bootstrap your ass up, dude. So says Matt Walsh in his soft manicured hands as he sits in his house like a lumbersexual. But yeah, this job discourse is great. I grew up in the 90s and the early 2000s. I was specifically told time and time again, if you don't study and go to college, you're going to end up flipping burgers for the rest of your life. Now, 20 years later, the young whippersnappers are being told, hey, sorry, we brought in, infinity, you know, slave laborers, so you can't get a good job. Why don't you try flipping burgers or making burritos instead? Yeah, this is gonna go over great. It's great when the social contract isn't contracting. When the social contract tells the young people you got to work hard and obey the law and study, and that way you can succeed in life, then you just kick them in the dick and take that away from them. Dare I say, it's a mystery why people are so angry. Yeah, it's a mystery. It's a mystery why everybody's pissed off and nobody's happy. Dare I say, some shit's about to pop off. I mean, you have the young people openly calling for the mass killings of CEOs and businessmen. The next 4 years are going to be pretty interesting. Oh, and by the way, grocery stores make you, damage the product beyond repair, and they actually put locks on the dumpsters to prevent dumpster diving. Now, I say this as somebody who has, in fact, had to dumpster dive for food. I don't recommend it. It's deeply shameful, and I fought really hard to not have to do that. Ponythroat says people who think working hard means more income clearly never worked a real job. Yes, I can tell you that. Yeah, you know what's fun? Speaking of Chinese working standards, you know what's fun? Having to do construction work for 13 hours a day while some fat fuck yells at you while sitting in the shade and getting paid peanuts. Yeah, that's really fun. Robert Diaz says there's plenty of jobs out there that pay well. The schools has told kids for 20 plus years working with your hands is evil. Yes, I mean, I support, you know, there's nothing wrong with a good old manual labor job as long as you're working for yourself, not in the conditions I've been in, where some lazy tub of shit, doesn't give you the right tools and they yell at you for not doing the job right, which has happened to me on multiple occasions. Those fucking boomers. Seapunk Messiah says, my my dog is barking for some reason. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. Ponythroat says, in German there's a term Backpfeifengesicht, a face that wants a fist in it. It describes Matt Walsh perfectly. Yes, it does. Yeah, just flip burgers, Zoomers. Just save money by doing dumpster diving. Get used to those lower living standards. The social contract has to be a contract. Both sides have to, uphold it. That's not happening. It's not good. Flipping burgers is a good thing, actually. Okay. Ponythroat says also Nick Fuentes, and since it's not his face that wants the fist in it. Yes. I think in Nick's case it's a Backpfeifen Arsch, if you know what I mean. I don't know if that's grammatically correct. I don't speak German. Robert Diaz says kids also go to school with $200,000 in student loans, end up with a degree that makes no money. That's not essential. I mean, yeah, to be fair, I feel like a lot of people who go to college don't need to go to college. That is correct. But again, it's kind of the boomers' fault. Like you tell the kids, like the only way to be, successful is by going to college, and you take that away from them. Lol, go work at Chipotle. Oh yeah, speaking of, I gotta go back to China for a bit. A video has gone out that's a bit viral of a Chinese police officer successfully doing a huracanrana on somebody. And I gotta say, I gotta have some respect for this. I mean, I think it's more of a flying head scissors actually, but still pretty impressive. Would that our cops could be trained to do such things? Okay. Oh, speaking of shitty jobs, the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Administration and Management grant. It was a grant for $716,000 for the Maryland Center for Construction, Education, and Innovation. The purpose is to expand female participation in quality RA programs through equity-focused pre-apprenticeship programs. In other words, they want to achieve participation rates for the following communities in, grunt construction work: 45% women of color, 8% veteran women, 7% of women with disabilities, 5% female convicts, ex-cons, 5% immigrant women, 3% trans women. I don't mean to be rude, but how many women do they expect are going to be doing like grunt, unskilled construction work? I'm sorry, but do you really think this is going to go over well? I mean, I've worked like several backbreaking manual labor jobs in my life. I did not see a single woman doing those things. People in the thread agree. I work as a contractor. In the past 27 years, I've had exactly one woman working for us long term. I mean, I've known two women in my life who have done construction. They were more like draftswomen who they're not like directly in the field. And to be fair, I feel like you would get a good amount of trans women, like the Wachowski brothers funded their movies with construction. Yeah, I don't see this happening. But hey, I mean, since America is going to belong to them in the future, the glorious, colored people and transgenders, I'm happy with them doing all the heavy manual labor, personally. Pony Throat says financial advice from boomers is like gaming advice for somebody who played the game on easy mode. Indeed. Pony Throat says an American cop doing that would be a 100% fatality rate for both parties. I'm sure China has some fat cops too. To be fair, Asia does, they will shame your ass if you're fat. Pony Throat says American cops should stick to flash kicks and strike forces. Yeah, sonic booms too. Robert Diaz says feminists want equality, they got to build houses too. I mean, in theory, yeah, but I can just see like the feminism leaving a woman's body when she has to, carry a brick hod or mix concrete. Okay. Moving on from that. Uh, let's talk about plastic. It's in our testicles, but it's also in our food. People are concerned with people not being able to get enough food. A paper titled Polytetrafluoroethylene Ingestion as a Way to Increase Food Volume and Satiety says in the abstract, satiety, the feeling of fullness, is largely due to being stretched out in the stomach. Increasing food volume and mass can increase satiety. You can achieve this without increasing the calories of food by mixing food with a non-metabolic material. Such a material should be inert, safe, resistant to stomach acid, have no taste, be powdered, and cost-effective. Polytetrafluoroethylene, PTFE, plastic is an ideal substance. is a soft plastic that is the most inert material known to man. It is extremely stable. Rats fed a diet of 25% PTFE had no signs of toxicity and they lost weight. Oh boy, little Timmy, have you had your bowl of plastic nuggets today? I mean, you could replicate this by you go grocery shopping, you take the food out of the plastic bag, then eat the plastic bag. We're going to be eating plastic. You're going to eat your plastic and soy nuggies, and you're going to like it. I mean, to be fair, like, for the extremely, like, morbidly obese, I mean, I'd be okay with, like, force feeding them, like, Legos so they could, like, stop eating. If that helps, it helps. I mean, it's better than Ozempic, I suppose. But, dare I say, I don't want to imagine a future where we're all eating plastic nuggies. Yeah. Seapunk Messiah says Bill Burr said it best. Hardcore feminists crumble when shit gets too hot to handle. Some of them, anyway. My wife says I like to point out this is not because women aren't willing to do the work. They're just told they can't, so they really get hired and stop bothering. I mean, I feel like it's like 50-50. I'm sure there's some women who want to do that work, but just from my experience, I didn't see any ladies out there in the hot sun with us. Pointer says powdered, cheap, non-metabolic. Is that another reason you put Sandman in the title? No, I put Sandman in the title just for Neil Gaiman. Robert Diaz says you don't need to feel full all the time. Learn self-control. Every one of those wackos will waste more time trying to find ways not to learn self-control. Okay. Ponythroat says, hope you know what Strike Force is from. No, I do not, actually. Please inform me. Anyway, I don't see the point of, eating microplastics. I think we should all eat macroplastics. Just shove plastic bags and like Legos into your mouth and just eat them whole. That's what you got to do. That's where it's at. Be like the sea turtles. Just eat plastic bags all day, every day. And finally, some positive news. Several restaurants are now implementing the play classical music after 5 p.m. to deter the Brappies strategy. In the UK, the Daily Mirror says fast food chain McDonald's has been playing classical music after 5 p.m. to deter certain customers and welcome other customers into their restaurant. Yes, the dead-eyed feral Brappy has a visceral, violent hatred towards classical music. I've literally seen it happen. They'll start screaming and panicking, and they'll start screaming, turn that shit off, brat, brat. Not to be outdone, another Twitter thread talks about a certain Italian restaurant in Rome, New York that plays Frank Sinatra very loudly, all day, every day. Sinatra is like poison to junkies and to African Americans, says the owner. They can't handle it. It keeps them off the block. Yes. The various street people of Rome, New York are nowhere to be seen. They just hate beauty and goodness, the Brappy. And it's not just like a white music thing, because, I mean, I just think like beautiful music, whether it be classical music or crooners, just deters Brappies. I guarantee you, if you were to play Johnny Mathis or Nat King Cole, it would deter the Brappy just as much as Sinatra. My wife says in South Africa, you see plenty of women working hard labor jobs. Again, like, I've known a couple of women who do that, but just in my experience, not too many. Seapunk Messiah says, pretend to be a kaiju and shout down on G.I. Joes and Army Men. Yes, that's also good. Yes, I'm 100% in favor of classical music being used to deter the scum of the earth. I mean, it's non-violent and it's cheap. Of course, I prefer overwhelming violence to be used against Brappies, but it is what it is. I mean, I am willing. I mean, I will carry a goddamn boombox into the gates of hell to like. Basically, this is what I dream of doing. I will carry a ghetto blaster on my shoulder, blasting like hard classical, like Dvorak or Wagner. I will instigate fights with Brappies. Then I will take baseball bats to them. I will clean up the streets my way, and it'll be good. Seapunk Messiah says Enya would make them disintegrate. Ponythroat says Strike Force is Striker's baton trip move from Mortal Kombat. Might have only been called that in Defenders of the Realm, though. I don't remember, to be honest. Like, I know he does like the baton trip. I remember very little from Defenders of the Realm, other than the fact that Jax was a fat boy in school. So yeah, blast nice music to send the Brappy into flailing rage, and take care of business. Yeah, somebody posted in the thread that in Sweden they play classical music to keep away junkies. But one time I saw a homeless man sitting there because he actually liked Chopin. Ah, so you see, there are nice, normal people who are homeless. Not too many, but there are some. I've met exactly one nice, normal person who was homeless in my life. So they do exist. Just very, very rarely. Ponythroat says, do Brappies react to Bach as if it were Indian love call? Yes, I believe they do. Their heads just explode. Also, bravo, sir. Mars Attacks should always be referenced on my stream. Anyway, let's go to the pop culture side of things. Yeah, so let's talk about the title story. Neil Gaiman is a sex pest. Neil Gaiman, the British graphic novel creator, best known for works like Coraline and The Sandman, is in fact a degenerate sex pest. Okay, he's also an avowed male feminist, saying to respect la donna and all that. Allegations have come from several women, such as his former his kid's babysitter, Scarlett Pavlovich, who alleges that Gaiman basically coerced her to getting naked into a bathtub, and he made her lick her own feces and beat her with a belt while beating off. He also abused several of his young female fans. He basically also had a woman living on his property who he allegedly forced to have sex with him in exchange for not having to pay rent. He then paid her several hundred thousands of dollars to keep her mouth shut. His ex-wife, Amanda Palmer, alleged that there were 14 different women who were abused. This was covered up for many years by the speculative fiction industry because he is a really big deal. He's very famous, and to be fair, he does make very good work. But he's such a big deal in the industry. Everybody covered up for him for years. Some people have pointed out that some of his work is a little iffy. Like American Gods and The Sandman has some weird sex stuff. Neil Gaiman is also the protege of Alan Moore, who, I'm just going to say he wrote The Lost Girls, so you can interpret that as you will. So, as usual, the loud and avowed male feminists are degenerate sex pests. Much like Hugo Schweizer and Joss Whedon and, John Gameshi and all those guys. What else is new? Hey. People said he's too big to fail. He's an award-winning writer. We can't, call him out. In other words, it's the exact same thing that happened many years ago with Marion Zimmer Bradley and Walter Breen, both of whom were horrible degenerates who molested their own daughter and several other people. And they were just, covered up for decades because, it's like, we're science fiction and fantasy nerds. We're the fandom. We got to stick together. Most people involved in speculative fiction fandom tend to be not the most socially adroit people, so they cling to whoever is, going to support them no matter what. That's a problem. It's a very big problem. Yeah, hate to say it, but yes, the speculative fiction community does have its fair share of sex deviants and sex pests. Why, I don't know. I mean, years ago, I did a theory on why that might be. Perhaps it's because they're still, the resentful little dweeb boys from high school who are finally getting a chance to exercise their power over willing young ladies. Probably something like that. C-Punk Messiah says, Fight of the Valkyries would be appropriate for your crusade. Yeah, Wagner, Dvorak, even like Basil Polidorus would be good. I would definitely play a lot of the great, film composers like Alfred Newman, Eric Korngold, Basil Polidorus, Miklos Rosa. Pointhorpe says, I found a hardcover copy of Lost Girls in a thrift store, like when Snow White had to entertain a horse using her mouth. Yep, that happened. Excuse me, it's not porno, it's intelligent erotica, thank you. So yeah, fuck Neil Gaiman, fuck Marion Zimmer Bradley, fuck Walter Breen, fuck Isaac Asimov's son who got arrested with child porn. Screw all those people. I mean, it's a shame because I do like his work, Neil Gaiman, but it's gonna be kind of rough to read now. Pointhorpe says clearly written one-handed. Yes. And finally, in popular culture news, movie A Better Man, a sort of tongue-in-cheek biopic of singer Robbie Williams as a chimp, flops in the United States and elsewhere. I mean, when I saw there was some kind of musical biopic about a chimp, I thought it was going to be like, oh boy, finally, the Planet of the Apes musical is getting off the ground. But seriously, I don't know what the hell they were thinking with this. As far as I'm aware, Robbie Williams was basically a one-hit wonder in the United States. I know he's much bigger in his native United Kingdom, but he had that song Millennium, and that was pretty much it for him. So it wasn't going to go over well in America. And then in the UK, it's like, why would I want to watch a movie about him as a cocaine-snorting chimp? The mind boggles, and it didn't go over well. Somebody on Twitter said it best. Making a biopic about a guy who was a one-hit wonder in America, but also an animal. It would be like if they made a Lou Bega biopic with him as a crocodile. For the record, I would watch the hell out of Mambo Number 5 starring Crocodile Bega. Thank you very much. Pointhorpe says, Harlan Ellison was a complete asshole and didn't give a shit about what people thought of him. At least he was probably not a sex pest. Yeah, I never heard of Harlan being a sex pest. I mean, he's a miserable prick, but he's not a sex pest. Didn't Harlan Ellison, once he got big, he like mailed like dead groundhogs to the guy who gave him like a English professor in college or something like that. Let me look that up. Because I'm basically done with my prepared remarks. You can talk amongst yourselves. Harlan Ellison said once, I don't take a piss unless I get paid for it. Yes, well said. Okay, so yes, he mailed an executive who rejected him like a dead groundhog once, just out of spite. So yeah, that does it for my prepared remarks. You can say your last pieces now, should you desire. C-Punk Messiah says, I always like to hear Harlan Ellison's voice. Yes, I always like the way he voiced Am in the video game of I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream. Okay, Ponythroat says, he mailed dead rats and bricks to people. But most sex pests like to project a clean public image, not be open douche canoes. Yes, that makes sense. Your average sex pest likes to pretend he's nice, whereas Harlan Ellison's just a surly, miserable son of a bitch out in the open. So, yeah, he's probably got a clean-ish conscience. C-Punk Messiah says, been using the rice bucket training. Good show, sir. Ponythroat says, Harlan Ellison voiced Am as if he were Ham. Yeah, clever. Okay, I'll give you another minute to say your last bits. Hey, Ponythroat says, Harlan also played an angry space midget in Deep Space Nine. I did not know that. Alright, that's, C-Punk Messiah asks, if I were to create my own martial art, what would it be? I don't know, basically it would be like, I don't know, basically I would do like sort of, Sancho Kung Fu or MMA, but with, the old school training methods sort of thrown in as well. Not super creative about that, but, you gotta do what works. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for today. For Larsen Halleck, this has been Larsen Halleck. All of you have a good day.